Welcome to our first town hall of the academic year. I'd like to start today with a land acknowledgement. The Auraria campus from which we're broadcasting is located on the traditional territories and ancestral homelands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Ute nations. This area was also the site of trade, hunting, gathering, and healing for many other indigenous people, including the Lakota, Kiowa, Comanche, Apache, Shoshone, and 45 other indigenous nations. And we must recognize indigenous peoples as the original stewards of this land. As these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, remember the ties these nations still have to their traditional homelands, and let us acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removal from this territory, and pay our respect to the diverse indigenous people still connected to this land. And also, more recently in our history, we acknowledge the displacement of residents of Auraria, Denver's oldest neighborhood, between 1955 and 1973, when it was distinctly Hispanic, and before the Auraria Higher Education Campus was built. We remember the community, the families, and the churches and the businesses whose neighborhood was uprooted in the name of urban renewal when the campus was built and opened in 1974. As a Hispanic serving institution, our history will inform our efforts to equitably serve our campus and surrounding community. And speaking of our campus, it's wonderful to have our community largely back in person after operating in a mostly virtual environment for the past year and a half. I know that over the past few weeks at different outdoor events and just walking around campus, I've had the chance to see so many of you in person, and many for the first time. And it's been good to see you and to see students and talk with our students. I know that we all hope the pandemic would be more in the rearview mirror by now, and that is not the case. The virus and our public health context keep shifting on us, and so we've had to keep shifting as well. For example, we're in masks indoors for now. But from what I'm seeing and hearing around campus, many of you are telling me that you're so glad to be back, even with the modifications to keep us safe. We have had some terrific outdoor celebrations, including Convocation, which took place outdoors on the Tivoli Quad to welcome our first year students. Last week, I got to experience my first CU Denver block party on Lawrence Street with music and Milo and booths from all of the schools and colleges and many units and student organizations and games and even people on stilts. And Tuesday, I got the opportunity to welcome many of our new faculty, which are an incredibly impressive group. I want to recognize that we're beginning our semester within the context of ongoing world crises, including COVID and Afghanistan, wildfires, climate change, racial injustice, growing economic disparities, and this week, of course, the aftermath of the hurricane in Louisiana and now on the East Coast. The complexities of our current global context underscore the importance of the role universities like ours have in generating the needed innovation and in preparing future leaders, and how we prepare our students to see the world, exposing them to different viewpoints, new perspectives. That determines the world that they will see, and thus how they will act and how they will lead. I hope many of you got some downtime this summer in one form or another. Last year was exhausting, but we got through it together, and we got through it better than anybody could have hoped. And with all of the innovations that you developed, as well as our strategic plan, I strongly believe we're in a position of great strength for our future. Among last year's successes were a number of senior leadership searches conducted with transparency and extensive shared governance, student, staff, and faculty input. And starting this year, we now have in place an innovative leadership team committed to moving this institution forward in our quest to make education work for all. And I want to introduce some of our new cabinet members and other leaders who've joined us since the last town hall we had. Of course, Provost Dr. Constancio Nakuma, and Senior Vice Chancellor of Strategic Enrollment and Student Success, Dr. Monique Snowden. Managing Director of Partnerships and Innovation, Anthony Graves. And we have a wonderful new Faculty Assembly Chair, Jared Hansen. And Dr. Katie Linder, Associate Vice Chancellor for Digital Strategy and Learning, thanks to a faculty-led search. Katie's going to lead us this year through the development of a campus-wide strategy for digital learning. Engineering Dean Marty Dunn is also serving as Interim Chief Research Officer as we conduct a national search for a new campus Chief Research Officer, and the committee will be formed in the next couple of weeks. It's been remarkable to watch the collaboration among this team over just a few short months of working together, and I absolutely am inspired by the great outcomes that we have in store for our institution. So another change also at the CU system level, as of July 1st, Todd Solomon, longtime CU system VP and CFO, was named interim CU system president, and the Board of Regents is preparing to conduct a search for permanent president. And so I want you to be on the lookout for upcoming opportunities for members of our campus community to provide feedback and ideas for the position on a special website that's in progress but coming soon. And over the fall semester, the Board of Regents will be inviting nominations for the search committee from faculty, staff, and student governance groups and alumni associations. So while many of us absolutely share the enthusiasm and excitement of returning to campus, I know that for many, there remains a lot of anxiety around COVID, particularly with the emergence of the Delta variant. And we're still in the midst of a public health crisis. So I want to let all of you know that the health and safety of our campus continues to remain our very highest priority. Despite the resurgence of the Delta variant, we are much better prepared for in-person experiences this year than we were a year ago. The difference is the availability of our vaccines. And I want to thank everyone in our community who got vaccinated. The majority of employees and students have reported on their vaccination status. And of those who have reported, 98% of our employees are vaccinated. And for our students who've reported, 93% have been vaccinated. Those are great numbers, and we want even more of our students vaccinated. It's still our best defense for keeping our community safe and out of the hospital. I also want to thank many of you who volunteered at our equity vaccine clinics this summer, making it even easier for more of our community members to get vaccinated. And we continue to require face coverings indoors on campus. We know that masks work, and so we're going to continue to do that for the time being. And boosters of the Pfizer vaccine are being provided at the Auraria Health Center for moderately to severely immunocompromised people in accordance with current CDC guidelines. And the CDC is expected to update those guidelines on September 20th, and the health center will adjust accordingly. And I want you to know that our team is continuously monitoring our cases on campus and in Denver and in Colorado. And we work regularly with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. And our Links Together website contains a dashboard that lists metrics like the number of cases on campus and our vaccination rates. And we're constantly evaluating conditions, and we will modify policies as we need to and as the circumstance dictates. If you have more questions and want more specific information that's related to COVID, we're doing 2 COVID-specific town halls next week, one for on September 9th, one for faculty and staff and one for students, where our Links Together chairs, Managing Counsel Chris Puckett and College of Liberal Arts and Sciences Dean Pam Jansma will answer your questions about COVID. So a very brief enrollment update for this year. It's pretty flat compared to last year. We're down 1%. We saw a 5% uptick in graduate enrollment and a 22% increase in first-time freshmen from last year, both in-state and out-of-state. Our challenge, similar to other universities in Colorado and around the country, is in our returning undergraduate students. Last year was hard. Overall, our undergraduate enrollment is down 4%. So the strategic plan, one of the things that I am most excited about this year is our work to implement the strategic plan that we just developed. I am so grateful to so many people in this community who worked on an ambitious vision for 2030 over the spring semester. 3,000 people participated, and you painted a bold picture, a differentiating future for CU Denver, which capitalizes on the things that we hold most dear. We have 5 big goals. First, to become the nation's first equity serving institution. Second, to be known as the University for Life. Third, to be internationally known for our research and creative work impacting 5 of society's grand challenges. Fourth, to build and sustain an open innovation district in downtown Denver. And 5, to be a people-centered best place to work. We completed the plan in June. Thank you so much. And we presented it to a very receptive and excited Board of Regents. And it includes how our plan will align with the CU system plan. I want to tell you that I am serious about getting this plan done and about making the investments we need to see this incredible vision through. My team has already been working on it this summer. We're planning for implementation. My cabinet, deans, shared governance leaders, faculty and staff from every school and college and major unit met in August to begin brainstorming the first steps for each of the goals. And over the next 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to develop roadmaps for each goal. And we're going to continue to practice the broad engagement that we used last spring to get your feedback and involvement on the roadmaps. I want to invite all of you to Future Fest, which is going to take place on September 28th. This will be an outdoor event where we're going to celebrate our successes, where I'll share campus updates, and we're going to feature a number of faculty and staff and students. We're going to share stories about their work and their lives. This is an evolution of the traditional state of the campus that will include food and music and hopefully some fun. And so look for an invitation soon in your email box. I now want to talk about our physical campus. And those of you know this who've been back on campus, we have a brand new City Heights Residence Hall and Learning Commons, which opened earlier this month. We were watching it get built last year. It is not just a residence hall, but it's a game changer for our students and our community. It has 555 first-year undergraduates living in it with safe, affordable, a residential experience that is also co-located with student services to support all of our first-year students adapting to our college life and to stay and to finish and graduate. It was very intentionally designed to foster connection for our students with each other, with faculty, and with staff. And in the Learning Commons, the first, which is right in the complex, the first and second floors contain support resources like our tutoring and our coaching and our math lab and our writing center and first year experiences and peer mentoring. And the third floor space is devoted solely for our faculty. It's for faculty support and development and to provide convening for our faculty to enhance teaching, excellence, and innovation. Truly, it's a hub of activity and collaboration for faculty. The Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning is there. The Center for Faculty Development and Advancement is there. It's the first dedicated space on campus for Think Studio, for UC Dolly. There are landing areas for instructional designers and supporting faculty. There's space for visiting faculty, for lecturers, for instructors. There's hoteling stations, there's lounge seating, there's even kitchens and lockers. And the space is ready and it's already having an impact. So we're very excited to have this building and this space on campus. Last year, we talked a lot about the Equity Task Force, incredibly proud of the work that they did. They completed their work in April and provided our campus with a roadmap for implementation. When they wrapped up their work in April, I announced my full support and commitment of $4 million towards this effort to become truly an equity serving institution. And for an update on where we stand with respect to this roadmap, I'm going to turn it over briefly to Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Antonio Farias.
Thank you, Chancellor Marks, and good afternoon, Blinks Nation. I'd like to begin with some updates, particularly about the Equity Task Force, or otherwise known as the ETF, which has evolved into the Institutional Equity Advocacy Council, otherwise known as the IEAC. With 7 of the original 15 ETF members continuing on as stewards of the ETF roadmap and funding that will come out of that. The IEC, in consultation with my office, will work towards implementing that roadmap and the allocation of funds over the next 3 years. And that will set us on a path that's really clear and concise towards 2030. I want to really call out and thank Drs. Antoine Jefferson and Dr. John Ronquillo, who will lead the IEAC for 1 year as Equity Fellows. And each subsequent year for the next 3 years, the co-chairs, as well as the committee members, will rotate. I'd like to speak also about capacity building. And what does that mean? This is already part of the roadmap, but I want to talk specifically about a cadre of search advocates, which has been trained to support search committees in diversifying our faculty and staff ranks. We will be piloting a program this academic year in several colleges. It'll be an offshoot that is being also developed through the graduate school that builds on the capacity of graduate school admissions. And I'd like to add that these efforts would not be possible without the cadre of deans that really get this. Mentoring. I want to talk about a little bit about mentoring faculty and staff. We will also be training a cadre of faculty and staff this fall to start doing formal mentoring techniques that will build equity right into the core of the outcomes. And over the summer, the cabinet and deans underwent briefings to center BIPOC mental health interventions here on the campus. We have been invited, fortunately, to apply for a grant to increase this capacity in our area. Mispronunciation of names, that's really clear. And some of us feel it in different ways than others, right? But I want to really talk about how preferred pronouns and mispronunciation demonstrate a level of cultural insensitivity that there's a correction to. And to counter this, we've integrated Name Coach into Canvas, allowing students, faculty, and staff to show up and be recognized through proper pronunciation of their names. This is a small but significant practical step in creating a culture of belonging here at CU Denver. Now, on the HSI and APZ front, I also want to give you a quick update. A central HSI, APZ, and ESI steering committee has been formed, and two operational committees, one for HSI and one for APZ, are in the process of being formulated as well. I want to really give a shout out to University Communications, which is conducting a national search right now for the first DEI communications director, which will be able to assist the HSI and APZ initiatives. And also, this academic year, cabinet and deans will continue to take part in workshops that began this summer, specifically designed for senior leaders to enact the transformational changes that are needed to become an equity-serving institution in HSI and APZ. And finally, just want to put the bug in your ear, save the date and save the mindset, because we're about to launch a campus climate survey. It'll come around mid-October. It'll take anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes max. It will impact students, and by that I mean undergraduates and graduates, faculty and staff. A report will go to the Board of Regents in mid-January of 2022 and to the campus in the early spring. And of course, it's all tied into the goals that the Chancellor has put out there for us all to really digest and embrace, which is Goal 1 and Goal 5, becoming an equity-serving institution and being a great place to work. Chancellor, I hand it back to you at this point.
Thank you, Antonio. It's truly exciting to see the progress on the equity front, which you know is so important to me and so important to who we are as a campus and who we aspire to be as an equity and serving institution. So thank you and thank everybody. I feel from my conversations with everybody that I've met over the last few weeks back on campus, there's so much energy, and there truly is this catalytic sense of community when we study and work in person. And this semester will no doubt require diligence and a lot of vigilance on our part, and we're right there. But it's not unfamiliar territory to us. I firmly believe that although we understand the true concerns associated with COVID, there's nothing that can stop the successes of our students, our faculty, and staff. All of you have chosen to define success in human ways, and you've put people first, and you've shown compassion and understanding for each other, and you've demonstrated through kindnesses large and small that we are our best as an institution when we can help each other. And for that reason, I have unlimited confidence in what we're going to achieve this year together. I want to turn it over now to our town hall moderator, School of Public Affairs Dean Paul Teske, who's going to introduce our panel.
Thanks so much, Chancellor Marks, and thanks for your illuminating and exciting comments. Lots to look forward to here. And my job is to spend the rest of this hour addressing your questions. We have a couple hundred people, it looks like, in the audience, and we have a great panel to answer those questions. We have a few that came in earlier that we will address, but you can put them as you have them in the Q&A, and we'll try to do our best to get to all of them. If we have too many questions, that's probably a good problem to have, and we'll answer them behind the scenes and then make sure we capture them in other communications if we don't get to them. So our panel of folks that are going to answer questions today, you've met some of them already, but I'll reintroduce some and add some more. Provost Constancio Nakuma, Executive Vice Chancellor for Administration and Strategy, Jennifer Sobene, Senior Vice Chancellor for Strategic Enrollment and Student Success, Monique Snowden. Vice Chancellor for Finance and Business Operations and CFO, Todd Haggerty. Vice Chancellor for DEI, Antonio Farias, who you just heard from. Managing Director of Partnerships and Innovation, Anthony Graves. Interim Associate Vice Chancellor for Research and our Engineering Dean, Marty Dunn. And our Links Together co-chairs who are managing our COVID response, our CLAS Dean, Pam Jansma, and our Managing Counsel, Chris Puckett. Thank you all for being here on the panel. And I just want to say on behalf of my fellow deans, this is an amazing new team that that Michelle has put together. Not everybody's new, but the folks that have been here before and the new folks really bring incredible talent, incredible experience, and we're very excited about where this all can go. So I'll start with a couple of the questions that came in earlier. First one for our provost, Constancio Nakuma. And the question is, what is the university doing to support our IRC faculty who carry a substantial portion of the teaching load at CU Denver?
Okay. Well, I'm glad that the first question came to me, and I'm even more glad that it's focused on our faculty. So let me explain first what faculty means to all of us and the constituents that we've pledged to serve and to help succeed, which is our body of students. To us, we have ranks and differences in terms of privilege that we have. To our students, we are all the same, and we are the front line of everything that we pledge to support them with, which is their academic accomplishments and the life that they live here with us, the intellectual development that we're going to help them with. And so our faculty, irrespective of our differences in ranks, are the same to our students. And that's the first thing we need to recognize. When I came on board, I met with the UC Daly team. They presented to me a report on issues that they believe we have to address. And as I looked at their report, what I did was to challenge them to be part of the solution, as opposed to being the ones who identify problems, to be the ones who also suggest ways for a solution. And those problems are issues that concern all of us. The task force went back to bring back a revised report with suggested solutions. However, what I decided to do with consultation with so many other different people on campus was to take the issues out of the purview of UC Daly task force and to put that in a university level task force to study the issues. And I gave them a charge to go and consult wherever they needed to discover all policies that might be standing in the way of our showing the level of care that everybody deserves, but especially our faculty, to discover all practices that may be standing in the way of showing full respect to our faculty, and to come back with a plan, and wherever there's monetary implications, to work with our finance group to suggest ways we can move forward. I've given them a deadline of October 29th to bring me back a plan that we can work on. And so that's where we are. But I want you to know that this is first priority for Chancellor Marks and her cabinet. I'm happy to be taking the lead in terms of trying to find a solution to where we are with respect to showing respect to everybody. Our pledge is to have a university that works for all. That all includes everybody, and especially our IRC faculty. So that's where we are right now. I will give you an update as we actually implement some solutions, but I want you to know that this is top priority for this administration.
Thank you, Constancio. The next question will go to Monique Snowden. How will the newly formed Division of Strategic Enrollment and Student Success better support CU Denver students, faculty, and staff?
So first of all, thank you for the question. So the division, to keep in mind, strategic enrollment and student success is a division that is under academic and student affairs. So it's really important to understand, first of all, that academic affairs and student affairs are very much a part of this division, and that it comes together to then articulate our notion of student success, meaning that we know our students require us to basically have not only their curricular aspects, but also those things that there are wraparound supports, things that even include things like housing and dining are really important, and those fall in the student affairs area. So we have a dedicated team of faculty, staff that are complemented by a cadre of students who are employees, volunteers, and ambassadors who all work together on three major, let's just say, tasks. First of all, enrolling new students and focusing on their orientation and transition into the university. This is where some of our areas like our first year experience comes into play. Then supporting continuing students as they engage in their curricular and co-curricular activities. And in this particular area, this is where we really have a chance to really bring forward the notion of student success. And an example of that is in our area of academic achievement under the leadership of Associate Vice Chancellor Margaret Wood. There are a lot of areas there that touch with not only teaching, but also learning and the wraparound supports that happen for students. And one of the things that we're going to do to try to better support not only students, but also faculty is to have that area kind of go across our various domains. One example would be this. In that particular area, we have a lot of individuals who work and focus on learning and helping support students as they're needing maybe some support in math or writing and things like that. But those students also might live in City Heights and therefore be a part of a learning community like we have this year in camp. And so how do we then have our folks who work in student affairs and the housing units actually work together with our individuals who work in the academic achievement area? So these are individuals who have worked for the university, many of them for years. And so how do we do it better? We do it better by being more collaborative, by being more collective in how we work together, coordinating our efforts, and understanding that intrinsically the students are needing all of those things for their, let's just say, ideal student experience. So let me just end my response to this by saying this. We in this division will collaborate with academic and administrative units across the university and partner with external entities to foster an unparalleled student experience from the point of admissions to the point of graduation. We will also meet our students where they are and treat them as whole persons who bring diverse experiences, perspectives, and assets to CU Denver. So I look forward to leading this division and making sure that our faculty and students get exactly the support that they need in the CU Denver way.
Thanks, Monique. That's a very exciting vision. We're looking forward to that. The next question is about strategic planning, and we'll go to Jennifer Sobenet. And the question is, should my unit and I be doing anything right now with respect to this? And then a follow-up, I have a really great new idea that for a project that aligns with some of the plan's goals, and how should I share that?
Great, thank you, Dean Teskey. And I have sirens behind me, so I'm sorry if you all can hear that. But first I wanted to say, great questions, and I'm really excited to serve in this role and to work with all of you to bring this strategic plan and our vision for 2030 to life. And so as I think about answering this question, these two questions, first I want to acknowledge that our strategic plan that we have created together, that Chancellor Marks talked about earlier in her remarks, is ambitious, and it will take every single one of us to achieve. As we move through the fall semester, there'll be room for all of us to figure out how we plug into making this strategic plan come to life. For right now, we're focusing on celebrating this bold new vision and educating ourselves on what it means for us. So we're going to use this semester to bring more information to the forefront so we can all better understand our purpose, our vision, and the goals that we have set in this strategic plan. The first step in that process is Future Fest on September 28th. Chancellor Marks mentioned this earlier. I encourage all of you to attend this. It's going to be fun, but also I think it will help create a deeper understanding of the direction we've set for ourselves and allow each of us to think about the ways that we can plug in to making this plan a reality. Now, for your other question, Dean Teske, for anybody who has a great idea, first and foremost, share it. Some ideas can be quickly and easily implemented just by sharing it with your colleagues and thinking through what's the best way to implement it. Other ideas might be more complex, and you should discuss it with your supervisor, your chair, your AVC, your associate dean, or even your dean. And it's through this generative conversation and deep discussions that we can figure out our next steps together. So I would say embrace the space that this plan gives each of you to be creative and innovative and think differently than we have in the past. And really, it's going to take all of us dedicating some of our head space, and I would say heart space, to making this plan come to life. And I look forward to being a part of making that happen at this university.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. So far, we have 3 questions that have come in from the audience, and we'll get to those in a minute, but please don't be shy. If you're out there and you have a question, we'll do our best to answer it. But moving on to the couple we have that came in earlier, and this one's really for Antonio. There's a lot of conversation about emerging HSI status and what the status of our university is regarding HSI. And one question is, in applying for grants, can I claim now that CU Denver officially has HSI status? And where do we stand with that?
It's a great question. So federal agencies use one of 2 methods to determine eligibility for what is known as minority serving institutions, or MSI grants, including the Department of Education's Hispanic Serving Institution and Asian American and Native American Pacific Islander Serving Institution grants. CU Denver, bottom line, meets the eligibility threshold for both HSI and ANAPISI grants. And we applied for several grants that relied on the Higher Education Act's congressional formula, despite the fact that this year's Department of Education eligibility grant coded us as ineligible for both. So we're going to have a really detailed memo coming out to the campus that is forthcoming. And I will also host a very specific ESI, HSI, ANAPISI town hall later this semester to really get down into the weeds. So thank you for the question.
That's great. Thanks so much, Antonio. Next question is for Todd Haggerty, our CFO. And its employees have been working harder than ever, it seems, yet they feel like they haven't seen raises in a few years. And when can we expect possibly to see a raise? And I'll also add, Todd, there's a question that came in just now that's related, and it says, on many levels, staff feel like an afterthought when it comes to equitable compensation. The CU system equity study has not been transparent beyond generalizations. How can we achieve strategic goal number 5 if we're not openly addressing this and fairly compensating our dedicated staff? So question about raises, a question about general compensation, and especially for staff. Thanks, Todd.
Well, thanks, Dean Teske. And I just have to first start off by just, saying thank you to everyone. It's 18 months ago where we made that pivot to go remote and to have to just really adjust on the fly to COVID. And as we did that, we were starting to face the largest financial shortfall in the history of CU Denver. And we had to make really tough decisions. And as most of us know, a lot of our expenses are people. And so what did we have to do? Make the painful decision to implement furloughs. And so not only were we asking people to do more and do more during a pandemic, but we asked them to take a slight pay cut at the same time as well. Now, fortunately, we were able to unwind those furloughs early. But we were, and as we'll hear even more of, we're not out of the woods from the pandemic yet. We're still dealing with it. Now, as we started to make some progress and unwind those furloughs early, we were able to provide a one-time increase for the first 6 months of the current fiscal year, which began July 1st. And we know that that's, we hear you, that's not enough. And we know that this is a top priority for the institution moving forward. And we are committed to trying to find solutions to this. Now, must be noted that in the April Board of Regents meeting, they adopted a resolution to adjust for the enrollment-based campuses, Boulder and Colorado Springs and Denver, to shift to a calendar year compensation timeline. And so part of what we'll be looking is to see how our final numbers come in for the fall, what that means for tuition throughout the year, and be able to evaluate what our options are for addressing compensation increases moving forward. But know that it is a commitment. Now, to get to the second part, the second question that Dean Teske, you raised here about the equity study, and now we have begun our first steps here in addressing the results from the study and our early analysis. We set aside money, and the Regents approved in our budget to start addressing some of the outliers that we found in the study. But again, we know that's not enough. And as we look forward, we are going to continue to find different ways and have to be making tough decisions at times to find ways to address all of the equity related items that we're facing. We have just hit the tip of the iceberg on this item here. But we are committed. We did set aside funds this year. We are making those adjustments. Now, again, it gets a little, how much can you say about where those adjustments have been made is always a little tricky, but know that we are in that space. We are moving forward, and we are committed to working with our HR partners, to working with the system office and all of our units to find a way and a path forward here to ensure that we are addressing this issue head on and acknowledging when that we'll need resources to do it and the tough decisions that will follow. But no, it is a priority and something that we will continue to address.
Thanks so much, Todd. The next few questions I think are going to be about COVID. And so I think Chris, Puckett, and Pam probably want to answer these, but with the Delta variant moving through the country, and the Chancellor talked about this a little bit, but how can I be sure that I'm safe on campus?
That is a great question. And I did see here a couple of questions, people expressing real concerns about what's going on in some units. I think what we did a great job of doing is closing down the campus and making everybody go remote. I think what's more difficult and what's harder for all of us is how do we come back safely? And I think that's been a challenge. I think that's part of the reason we started to try and do that starting in June, to kind of create a longer runway so that we could try and have patterns and practices, and we start to reestablish our habits in safer ways, perhaps, right? So I think part of what we know about COVID is vaccinations work. So get your damn vaccine, period. If we also know that masks work, and we know that we have a mask order in place. What we also know is that both here at our institution and other institutions, Boulder's done the study recently with data from Duke as well, that most of the time transmission doesn't happen when people are masked in classrooms. What can happen is that people before and after class, students ride in the car together, they hang out together. That's where transmission happens. And so for a staff faculty standpoint, I think our hope and plan is that you keep wearing your mask and you get your vaccine. And between those things, I think we are going to be about as safe as we can. Now, I think that sometimes, and I think I saw the question, there are circumstances where people feel like they're not able to tell other people that they need to wear a mask. And I think what I would encourage you to do is recognize that we're all in this together. And my hope is, and I saw Jennifer do this the other day with the security guard at our front desk, she gently, very kindly reminded him to put on his mask. I would not have been as kind or as smiled at him, and he probably wouldn't have done it. But what that goes to is I think there are lots of ways we can try and be kind to each other, recognize that we all want to get along in this space. And now, having said that, we also have on our COVID website, on the FAQ site, a number of places where you can report situations, report concerns. You don't have to identify yourself. And I know of at least 3 or 4 of those in the last week where we have, I've actually intervened to indicate to somebody, hey, this issue has come up. How do we want to address it? And so all that to be said, I think there are ways that we can get through this together. And frankly, when we have had those few situations, the people who've said, gosh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that other people were concerned about my behavior. I'll put my mask on more frequently. And so I think, one of the things we joke about is, you're going to eat, if you haven't flown on a plane, they do this, right? They remind you every 5 minutes, okay, if you're eating something, put your mask back on, put your mask back on, put your mask back on after you take a breath or after you, take a drink or after you eat something. And that's part of what we're going to have to adopt, especially as we're in shared spaces. So I think it's a great question. I think we're going to continue to monitor. I think you said this at the beginning, Chancellor, we are literally on a daily basis watching the numbers, being in touch with CDPHE, Denver Public Health, K-12, I've got kids in Jeffco School District. I think we're all watching and waiting to see what happens in that space. And I think, we will be ready for what comes next. I think we are in a good space. Our numbers are consistent, meaning we're not seeing lots of cases. And we haven't seen spread in classrooms at all. So I think that's where we are at the moment. And I'll also echo what Todd said. Thank you very, very much for all your work. I know I've been there, trust me, for the last 18 months, and it has not been easy. And you all have done an amazing job, and our students are appreciative. And if you haven't seen them in person, they are a delight. And I think they truly do appreciate your willingness to do what you did remotely and also in person.
And I'll just add to what Chris said. I think there are a lot of students, if you see them with their mask off, they've just simply forgotten. And we've pointed and they've gone, oh, and they put their masks back on. So there is a lot of people forgetting, including me once. So just be kind to folks, because I do think people just aren't used to it.
Great point, Pam. Thanks, Chris. A couple of follow-ups on COVID issues. There's one question came in. Is it true that Disability Service Office is writing or granting written waivers for students to not wear masks in the classroom? And if so, then how do we enforce mask wearing for everyone if we don't know about that?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I could probably tell you the faculty member that came from, right, Pam? So what I would tell you is this: we have been closely monitoring with Disability Resource Services whether they have been or are granting mask accommodations. I was aware of a single accommodation request that was specifically communicated to faculty members in the school where that had happened last week. I'm following up right now because there was a unique circumstance, and we were able to kind of walk through the steps. Frankly, at this moment, I don't know whether we've accommodated anybody else, but I think I'll just say that it's something we're going to watch very closely. And if we're able to do as we did last week, do it successfully in a way that was respectful and it worked, we may be able to continue to do that. However, we may not be able to. So I would just say I recognize, and I heard about this concern, Pam forwarded some things along to me as well, that we're going to have to continue to discuss this, whether we can accommodate not mask wearing. What I will tell you is we have gotten a lot of requests, including a legal one I just got, to be exempted from mask wearing and testing for people who are unvaccinated. And the answer is no, absolutely not. That's not how this works. In this one rare occasion, we did allow a mask accommodation, but only in limited circumstances, with clarification with the faculty and some other people. So thanks for the question.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Very helpful. There's a couple of questions that just came in. I'll try to pull a few of them together around, employees resigning, partly related to COVID. And, if you read the national media, there's the so-called Great Resignation, right? That a lot of employees are potentially leaving some of their jobs and for various reasons. And some of that has happened at the university, which meant that other workers have had to step up and do more than their share. And so what is our plan to replace some of these positions? And, how do we feel about the workforce we have right now and what we can do to, fill in the places where we've been struggling? And there's also a specific question about AHAC cleaning services and whether they're down some positions that came in. So I'm not sure who would want to jump in on that first. I could imagine, Jennifer, Todd, Monique, others maybe giving a perspective.
Yeah, I'll start, and then I'll see if any of my colleagues want to jump in here. And first know that as we started to, I would say, thaw the hiring freeze, we've done so cautiously and had to been cautiously. As I said, we're not fully out of this pandemic yet. In fact, we're into a sort of a new normal-ish kind of world where we are within it. But we are moving forward. We're trying to fill those critical positions and those other positions that are open. But as Dean Teskey noted, this is also, with the Great Resignation, it's also a very, very competitive market right now. And so we have to acknowledge where that is right now, and people making lots of different choices of what they want to do, which goes to why goal number 5 is so critically important in the strategic plan of being the best place to work and putting people at the center. And this goes back to the question I answered earlier about when can we see compensation increases, but that's just a part of it. There are so many other things here that go into being a best place to work that'll actually hopefully be able to retain and attract faculty and staff. And so that is probably at the core of so much that we're talking about lately. And I'll see if Jennifer or others want to add anything more on this.
Thank you, Todd. I'll jump in too. I agree. Goal number 5 of really making this a human-centered best place to work is going to take all of us to really rethink a lot of the ways that we do things. And certainly filling the vacancies that we have as we're seeing this turnover is one of the highest priorities that we have. And the hard part is it's become a little bit of a logjam in HR because we're seeing so many vacancies being filled. So not only is it the great resignations that are happening across the country, it's also that we had the hiring chill for so long that as soon as we were releasing that and thawing that hiring chill, that we have seen this push to hire. And so we end up with a backlog in just trying to get the paperwork done and get the positions pushed out into the community for people to come on board. And so it's a little, I just want to acknowledge the truth of that is difficult right now. And having enough resources inside of HR to be able to process things fast enough has been something that we've struggled with. And I want to acknowledge that. And I want to thank our HR partners for the work that they've been doing, because they're working 7 days a week trying to process all of these. So please know that we see this, we acknowledge it. We thank our HR partners for working so hard to help us through this. And as we work together to make this a human-centered, great place to work, we're going to have to figure out how we can more quickly manage through these processes. And it's a top priority.
Great, thank you. Relatedly, there's a positive point about the tuition assistance benefit and some of the new changes that have been made to that, but also a question about whether it's possible to expand the number of credits that are to be used potentially by the tuition assistance benefit, and whether that's a conversation underway. So again, it's probably Todd or Jennifer again.
Well, we are really excited that we did make some changes to the tuition assistance benefit, and particularly allowing our employees to be able to register a week early now. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but it is critical in making sure for some course management side of things. And we would always love to find other ways to improve our benefits. Again, this is all about that goal number 5 and being a great place to work and putting people at the center. And so these are things we have to explore. I always, again, then put on the financial hat and go, there are trade-offs for everything that we have to do. And we have to put it all together, because we have to put that in. Where does compensation increases fit in? Where do all these other items fit in? And they're all interrelated. And so what we really will need to do, and as I think Jennifer could probably add in, as we start to go forward with how we implement the strategic plan and looking at goal number 5, there's a series of steps and roadmaps and all of these things that we'll need to lay out and go, what can we do and when can we do it? But we are, that is, again, something that anytime you can further and take advantage of what I think is already, a great benefit, but actually make it better, is something that should be in discussion.
Great. Thanks, Todd. We're getting through the questions, but there's still several more, so that's good. And we have a few more minutes. Monique answered this one online, but I think it's worth highlighting. Someone asked, as courses have shifted from in-person to online delivery in the past few weeks, and I would say, I think we're not doing that so much. So that's one issue to talk about. But students who are still on campus have struggled to find locations where they can find or access Zoom. Where should we refer students who need a place on campus with reliable Wi-Fi and some degree of privacy? So Monique, do you want to start with that?
So Paul, online, we have actually in our resources online, we actually have some information that's available, and we can share the link to that site that tells you where you can basically find lab spaces across campus. In short, we have a list of areas where you can have, there's lab and study spaces in North Classroom, in the Student Commons in Tivoli. There's also some open workspaces, and on on that website, it also lets you know where there is Wi-Fi available, whether there's reservations that are required, and whether those areas are staffed. It also tells you a little bit information about how those areas are cleaned relative to our COVID guidelines.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts on that? Okay.
Let me jump in real quick
Please.
because I saw an email just go around this morning and I haven't had a chance to send it over to Monique. There are a number of questions that are coming up in this space across AHAC. And so AHAC is actually going to be putting together some additional documentation in addition to our terrific website. So once we get that, that'll also be put up because it's an issue arising both with CCD and Metro students as well.
Thanks, Chris. There's a couple of questions that have just come in on kind of remote work and how to, balance that. There's a point made about that the top tech firms are, enhancing their workforce by giving a lot of flexibility. And the question is kind of, are we continuing the process where the main discussion is with your supervisor and depending on the nature of your work in terms of how often employees need to be on campus, especially as we see the Delta variant issues. So I don't know, Chris, do you want to start with that? I know there's some complexities to this.
I wasn't listening to you, Paul. Let me be honest. I was reading the questions because I thought I was
That's a lot to me at home, so I'm used to it.
I'm sorry.
And anybody else could jump into, and that the general remote work question.
I didn't think you were going to ask me this one. Because I think this is I will say this, I think, and Provost, I think there's some questions here that are kind of tying into this, which is, our goal when we created the long runway, and Dean Jansma as well too, when we created the long runway was to help start to create an operating pattern and a tenor and a set of expectations and kind of pattern and pace to how we would get the work done, meaning how we would serve our students the best. And I don't think that's changed from the approach that we've wanted to take since then, which is we want to do the work where the work needs to be done at the times and in the places where the students need it to be done. And I think that's what I would say that we're going to continue to ask, that units continue to do that. I think, does that perhaps provide for more hybrid alternative situations? And I think part of what we've seen is in different places, I think we have seen that, right? Pam, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there are certain jobs that can be done easily from home and certain jobs that can't be done easily from home. And then we also have equity issues in terms of how different offices are staffed. And so we're trying to balance all of that while providing people the opportunity to work remotely for some portion of time. And when I say trying to balance, and you can imagine if you're in a smaller unit, a smaller department, and there's one program assistant, and how do we balance that program's assistant's desire to work some portion of the time from home, but yet maintain an office presence? And so those are the types of issues that we think about. But I think most people are being very flexible.
Great. Thank you. There's sort of a fun question, which is, can faculty and staff sign up for dining meal plans at the new facility? And how do they do that? I'll ask Jennifer, I guess.
No, yes, they can.
Yes, they can.
Yes, they can.
Yes, and there are flyers, there are brochures that we have at City Heights that can show all of us how we can sign up. You can sign up for a certain number of meals each semester, and you get some kind of free cash to go with it to use in other areas around the campus. So yes, 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 and please sign up, because that was the whole idea of creating the dining the way that we did it. We wanted it to be not just for the students who are living in City Heights, but also for our faculty, our staff, our commuter students who aren't living in City Heights, so that we all have a place that we can go to eat fresh, nutritious, delicious food and break bread together, be together. We can sit outside together, eat, take off our masks and just be together. So yes, please go find those. You can sign up for those online, and there are little brochures at the dining facility to be able to learn how you do that.
Awesome. Thank you. I hear the Mongolian barbecue is going to be very good. So looking forward to that. In the couple of minutes that we have left, because we've hit most of the questions, I just want to offer the provost and the chancellor a minute if they want to, you know, based on what they've heard, if they want to talk across some of these questions and just summarize what we've talked about today. So Michelle or Constancio?
Yeah, let me just make a few comments and then Michelle will close out the session. What I'm hearing and being extremely grateful for is all of the hard work that has gone into maintaining this campus and serving our students in a way that promotes safety. I want to encourage us to continue in that mindset. I'm very encouraged to see that faculty haven't gone in droves to change their in-person teaching modality to remote. That's very encouraging. And while we're all concerned about our safety, and the masking is something that is quite inconvenient, but you know, we recognize that's probably the least inconvenient option when compared to going to hospital because we didn't take the needed precautions. So I just want to say we're very grateful and we're lucky to have faculty, students, staff, all of our community that's eager to see us go forward in all of the ambitious goals that we've set for ourselves in a way that is safe and where we really can say we're doing everything we can to have a campus where we enjoy coming to work. So I just want to say thank you, and I will stop here and allow Chancellor Marks to make her comments too.
That's wonderful, Constancio. It's so good to have you with us. I also want to express my gratitude to the entire community. A lot of the questions today are real tensions and real issues that we're facing, and it is a difficult time. And we're working hard to listen carefully to you all and to work through the issues and to become a more flexible workplace and still be very student-centered and take care of our students. We run a large ground game here and be a workplace that the best place to work where people want to work and where people can thrive. Those are core to the values that we hold dear. And at the same time, we're working towards a strong future for this institution. We believe that CU Denver is absolutely critical to the future of our city, to the future of our state, and frankly, to the future of our world. And so we're working both in the near term to manage the changes and the issues, and we're working strategically to position this institution and all of you to thrive into the future. And we're grateful for all of you who came and joined us today, for all of you who asked questions. If you didn't get your question, if you had questions and didn't get to ask, I encourage you to reach out to us. And there's one question that came in around Einstein Brothers. We're gonna find a way to get that information to you. I'm curious about that as well. But if you are out there and you're interested in joining me for some outdoor Mongolian barbecue, shoot me an email, and I'm looking forward to finding ways to connect with even more of you this semester. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Welcome to the fall semester, and I look forward to seeing more of you. Take care, everybody.